You know, all these people have these catchphrases at the start of their YouTube channel. They'd be kind of like, something that's kind of like a catchphrase. You know, I can't think of it right now, but like, it'd be something, anything. It can be like, what's up YouTube or something like that. I don't do it. I don't do that. I don't know what happens. It's just, I think I just go, all right, all right, all right. Yeah, all right, all right. So, or just laughing to myself, right? Just giggling to myself, like the monk. He used to wake up in the morning and before he used to go to bed, he'd be giggling to himself. I think I talked about that before, but I think it is just a giggle on your past, your past way of living, your past way of deciding things, and like another thing I would like, because this talk is just going to be whatever comes up, right? So kind of like but it comes and goes though as well. I think it's important when it does go, when that kind of spark within that submission undoes itself, that it's very important to work with yourself when you're not feeling very well and you go back to the old ways. It's very, very important in them areas to not look at it as like, oh, I've went back and I'm back to the way I was before. Look at it as, no, it's a challenge. It's a test to see if I can stay with it and be aware as much as I can when I'm in that, and then you progress more within the no self life, within the life of kind of like where you are free, where you can express yourself, when you can say whatever you want to anyone. That's very important to understand, that you can't say anything you want to anyone in the state that we're in right now, most of us are in right now, because it's because the sour spirit and saying anything you want doesn't mix. You can say anything you want to anyone, but there's goodwill behind it. So when there's goodwill behind it, you can say whatever you want to anyone, okay? And there's different labels for it. You can call it having a care in your heart. You can call it, not in your own way. Because when you're not in your own way, then you're kind of like, you operate. You just operate. You're not in your own way. So it's kind of like, you're not stuck within yourself and like just frozen within yourself. You're not like that. When you're in no self, you're not like that. So it's kind of like, well, I can say whatever I want to anyone and they can say whatever they want back to me, and I'm not going to get offended. But when you're getting offended, you cannot be in no self, because who's getting offended? There has to be someone there that's getting offended, right? And who is it? Who is that entity that is getting offended about whatever someone else says? Okay? Now, it is important to look at every human being as lunatics, because that's what they are, dude. That's what we are. We're lunatics, who have been programmed by a very dark energy on this planet, and we've been programmed, right? So it is important to look at it that way. And just to touch on, because I'm always talking about women and it comes across as negative, I know that, I understand that, right? But I have to apply a certain area, a certain seeming arrogance about it, to push forth a point to the men that listen to the few men that might listen to this channel, and women that listen to the channel as well. I'm not against women. Anyone that knows me personally knows that I'm actually very good with women. I have a lot of respect for them, time for them, and kind of like, I'm not arrogant with them, and many times they're smiling when I'm around. All right, so it's not about that. It certainly is not about that. So kind of like, and just to talk about a woman that I used to go out with years ago, she taught me one of the best lessons that I ever learned. I used to go out with her and kind of like, one of the best women I ever met, one of the best human beings I ever met. And to this day, we'll still stay in touch every now and then. She'll call me the odd time, I'll call her the odd time, and we'll just chat and whatever. And there's no nastiness between the two of us, because what we had when we were going out was beyond just, we were learning from one another. I'd learn from her and she'd learn from me. That's, as far as I can tell, is what a real engaging kind of like spending time together is all about. It's about enjoying the other person in loads of different ways, but also about, she used to call me out on my own bullshit. You know, I didn't particularly like it at the start, but I could see its value over time. And not to say that she was perfect, because she's not. She's a goofball as well. Same as I'm a goofball, right? But one of the things that we were walking around Nakura one time in where they made the part in Braveheart. You know, it's a big field where the army barracks are. So we used to walk around there a good bit. It's a good way to walk all the way around the field, all the way around. In the middle is the army barracks. So sometimes we'd walk around there, and it would take hours to go all the way around, right? So it was the place where they made that part in Braveheart where he has the blue makeup on in his face. You know, half the blue makeup on his face, right? So we were talking about stuff to do with kind of like, you know, advancement, human advancement, and why we're kind of like in a state of confusion, and our psychic system is in a state of confusion. And she said something to me one day, and it was basically this. She just says, no one can make you into a slave unless you first agree to it yourself. Now this is coming from a woman who went through more than most people would ever be able to go through. I'm not going to go into it because it's not my place to say, right? But I'll assure you, she's went through more pain and suffering than anyone else probably ever, and came through it on the other side, and still has a good positive energy and tries to be in service to other people because of it. So my hat is always off to her, always the greatest respect to her, always the greatest thoughts about her, because she is in some way she's a really, really good friend. And I don't say that hardly about anyone. You know, she's an exception to the rule, okay? That no one cares. This woman is in my opinion, right, is like a magician. I used to say to her, she's like a magician. But when she said that, it sparked just the way she said it, and maybe I was ready to hear it or whatever, but that sunk into my psychic system when she said that, because it's dead right. She's dead right, 100%. What she said was dead right. It's not that she's dead right. What she said and conveyed through words is dead right. Even when the system is trying to make you submit, even when the police are your enemy, not public servants, even when the judges are acting outside their natural role, which is as referee, not as the judge, when you don't even know who they are. It has to be your fellow man and woman that can judge you with a crime that they've brought you in for to do with loss, injury and harm, or breach of a contract. Okay, it has to be a verified claim in reality. So they're operating, but even them people, all these people, they can't make you a slave, dude, unless they control heart and mind first. They can't make you, they can put you in prison for 20 years. They can't make you a slave. It's impossible. You have to first agree to it. You have to first agree to being a slave and believing what they say. That even like the Charles Manson thing I talk about. Who's in prison? Who's in prison? I'm not in prison. You're in prison. You're in a prison of your own mind. You're in a prison of your own heart and attachment, which comes from attachment. Like, you know, if you're attached, then you are under heart control. Okay, so to give credit to, I'm not against women at all. Any women that even know me will know that, like, I'm you know, I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I have no animosity towards women. I have no anger or hatred towards women. I just try and say it as I see it, and that's important to me. All right, but I will definitely call women out and myself out on my own bullshit, and I don't trust them. I can't trust men either. I can't trust anyone. How can I, when we're all programmed like a fucking bunch of simps and a bunch of morons? All right, but that particular woman that I'm talking about, my hat's off to her, always will be. She is an exception to what I talk about, because even when she heard some of the talks where I was pretty venomous sounding, but that's only to people that have no insight. If you have no understanding and you have no insight and you can't trust your eyes and you can't trust what you actually see yourself, if you're sparked by one of them talks, it means that I am talking about you. That's the game, right? I'm talking about you because you should be able to know yourself what's going on without me describing it. All right, And that woman that I'm talking about, the one that I learned a very big lesson from, she never got offended by any of them talks. And do you want to know why? Because she knows I'm not talking about her. We talked about it on the phone one day, and she didn't even acknowledge. She said, I don't know, what do you mean? Yeah, I listened to her, yeah. And it was like there was no even acknowledgement. That's what I'm talking about. Because they're not easily led by other people. They understand where I'm coming from. They understand what women are doing to a certain point as well, and what men are doing as well. It's not just about women, right? And she knows I'm not talking about her, so she wouldn't get offended about it. Why would she? Any woman that gets offended by it, I'm talking about you, because you're not advanced in any way whatsoever. You run away with the fairies in your own head about what was said instead of trusting your own heart and mind. Okay, so it's very important to know that the system cannot, even if you're in compliance to it. I'm in compliance to it, and in certain ways, even though I don't like it, and I'm like, kind of, well, do I want to fight it directly and end up and just go to prison, or do I want to do something else? Because, like Paul and Slave says, it's not for everyone. Maybe later on it will be. I don't particularly like them doing what they're doing in a very sneaky, pernicious way. But they can't make you submit. They may be able to they may rob you and play games on you and tricks on you and all the rest of it. But where it really matters, heart and mind control, they have no power over you, bro. Over you, miss. They have no power, only unless you give it from your own heart and mind and your energy system. They have no power at all. It can be challenging, yes, because they can fuck you over if you start pushing back a tiny bit. They will fuck you over, dude. They will strip you to the bone. These pieces of scum, filth, trash, slime, grime. They'll strip you to the bone, these good people. Alright? But they can't make you a slave unless you first agree to it. Remember that. I yield.